Welcome back, students. Lesson 3, Measurement, Module 6, Solving Word Problems Involving Circles. Calculators will be allowed for this class. Now that we have covered the topics of how to find both area and circumference of circles, we can use that knowledge to solve word problems with slightly more complicated diagrams and figures. Not to worry, as long as you remember the formula and work it out systematically, you'll do great. There is only one objective for this lesson: solving word problems involving the area and circumference of circles. Some of the topics that you may have to revisit are these. 1. Area and perimeter of squares and rectangles. 2. Area and perimeter of triangles. Remember that the value of pi is usually taken as 3.14 or 22/7. We can also get the value of pi from the calculator. Just to recap, in the calculator, to get the value of pi, you've got to press pi followed by the equal sign. Okay, let's move on to question 1. Question 1, the figure shows two quadrants and one semicircle. Find the perimeter and area of the shaded region, the area that is shaded in blue. Pi is taken as 3.14. Now let's do this first. Let's find the perimeter first. And another thing I need you to do is I need you to look at the diagram carefully and figure out how you can make your life easier by figuring out how the math works here, okay? How the figures can be rearranged. Think about all these things. Look at the diagram, think about it. Instead of finding each arc separately, we can rearrange them to form a circle. Let me show you how that is done. Draw the semicircle. Draw the semicircle the way it is done. Yes, exactly, that's it. Now look at quadrant number 1. I'm going to highlight that for you in yellow. Flip it over. You see, you did not change the length. All you did was flip it over, right? And the other side, which is highlighted in red, flip it over again. And now you've got a complete circle. You know the diameter is 16 cm. So what can you do? Circumference of a circle is what? Circumference of a circle is pi d. You know pi, you know d, you can solve for the answer. 3.14 multiplied by 16 equals to 50.24 centimeters, and that is the circumference of the shaded area. And that's your answer for that. Now for the area. Again, look at the diagram and see if you can find a way to make it easier. Think about it, visualize it. We can arrange it again to form what? Let's do this, and let me do this and show it to you, okay? Let's draw the semicircle again. Okay, this is the same semicircle, shaded blue. Now look at the other two shaded areas, okay? I'm going to segment it out for you. Look at the yellow portion. Bring that down. Connect it over there. You see what is being done over there? Connect it over there. And the other side, the shaded area, bring it down, flip it over, and connect it over here. And what do you have? You have a rectangle. Now what is the diameter? The diameter is the same, which is 16 cm. What, in this case, it is the length of the rectangle. What about the breadth? You know the diameter is 16. So the rectangle is based on that. So you take 16 and you divide it by 2 and you get the breadth of the rectangle. Okay, it's basically forming a square around a circle. The figures would be the same. So now because you're cutting it by half, you're getting 8 centimeters. So let's do area now. Areas, what's the formula for area? Area is length times breadth, right? Length times breadth. Length times breadth. What is your length? Your length is 16. What is your breadth? Your breadth is 8 cm. And what is your final answer you get? 16 times 8 is 128 centimeters squared. And that is your final answer. All I'm trying to tell you is do not think of it as a fixed way of work. You've got to get creative over here. Moving on. Question 2. The figure is made using two quadrants. Quadrant number 1, quadrant number 2, with radius 7 cm each. Find the perimeter and area of the region marked green and take pi to be 22 over 7. Now, once again, you've got to get creative over here. You've got to figure out how to move the figures to make your life easier. A quadrant is a quarter of a circle, and 2 quadrants. Let's draw this one out. So you've got 2 quadrants. What will that make? That will give you a semicircle. So to find the perimeter, we simply have to find half the circumference of a circle. So let's set this one up. Half the circumference. Half the circumference equals to what? 1/2 times 2 pi r. 2 pi r is full circle. So half times 2 pi r is a semicircle. Let's plug in the numbers. 1/2 times 2 times 22 over 7 times 7. Do the math and your answer is 22 centimeters. And that's your answer as far as the perimeter is concerned. Now let's do the area. To find the area of the green region, we begin by dividing the figure in half. Okay? So you're taking out the quadrant and you're looking at the quadrant separately. So let's draw the quadrant out. Okay? So what is the area you're looking for? You're looking for the shaded portion. That's the area you're looking for. That's the answer you're looking for. So look at this figure carefully. Okay, now let's form a formula. Let's all get together. Let's all discuss a little bit and form a formula. Let's create a formula for this. You're looking at a quadrant, which means you can get the area for the quadrant. In the figure, you can see a right angle triangle as well. So you can get the area for that as well. So if you take the area of the quadrant and if you minus off the area of the triangle, you should and will get the area of the shaded region. So let's set this one up. Shaded area equals to 1/4 of the area of the quadrant. 1/4 times pi r squared. 1/4 times pi r squared. So 1/4 of pi r squared is the area of the quadrant, and let's minus off the area of the right angle triangle, which is going to be half times base times height, right? Half times base times height. Now let's plug in the figures. Let's plug in the figures. Equals to 1/4 times pi is 22 over 7 times r squared, 7 times 7. Put that into a bracket because that is your area of the quadrant. Minus half times base times height, which is half times 7 times 7. The radius and the height are both 7. You can look at the diagram again, the diagram in green. Okay, that is 7 cm and the height is also 7 cm. Okay, when you do the mathematics, you get 38.5 minus 24.5. And the final answer you get is 14 cm squared for just that figure. So mind you, you've got 2 figures like that, right? Look at the original diagram and you'll realize you've got 2 figures like that. So now you have to multiply the answer by 2 to get the area of the green region. So that is the last step. Step 3 is this. To get the answer for the area of the green region, you take 14 cm squared, the one you just solved for, using one quadrant, and you multiply it by 2 because there are 2 quadrants there. So it's 14 times 2, which is 28 cm squared, and that is your final answer. So the area of the shaded region is 28 cm squared, and the perimeter is 22 centimeters, and we are done with question 2. Moving on. Question 3, students, the last question of this class. This is a long one and it's a tricky one. The figure shows a 32 centimeter square with 4 identical circles within. Find the perimeter and area of the shaded part, the little green part right smack in the middle of the figure. Giving your answers correct to 2 decimal places. Use the calculator value of pi. Okay, now there are most probably a lot of ways to approach this, but I would suggest this. My recommendation would be to find the diameter and the radius first. So let's look at the diameter of the circle, of each one of those circles. Now, Can we say this? The diameter of the circle is half the length of each side of the square, right? Can we agree on that? So when you do the calculation based on that, what is the answer you get? You get the answer as 16 centimeters. So if you know the diameter of each one of those circles to be 16, what's the radius going to be? The radius is going to be 16 divided by 2. You've got 8 centimeters. Okay? Now, once again, let's look at what the question is asking for. The question is asking for the perimeter of the shaded area. So, I want you to think about this. I want you to think about forming some sort of a square from the center of each of those 4 circles. You see, from the center of each, if you had a dot in each one of those circles and you just connected them, you would get that square. Now, what are you looking for? What are you looking at suddenly? You're looking at 4 quadrants. Now, let's draw a line around the quadrant. You see, that's the line. Let's do it for all 4 of them. That's the perimeter you're looking for. So, technically, 4 quadrants make up a circle, doesn't it? 4 quadrants will make up a circle. So, if you can find the circumference of the 4 quadrants, which is the circumference of a circle, you've got the answer. So step 2 is to set that up. Circumference of this circle is going to be pi, the calculated value of pi, times the diameter. What is the diameter? We've already solved it for 16 centimeters. Right? Pi times 16 centimeters. When you do the math, you get 15.265. But the question clearly tells you to give the answers correct to 2 decimal places. So you get 15.27 centimeters, and that is the circumference of the shaded area. Now that we have done the circumference, let's move on to the area. Okay, now by subtracting the area of the 4 quadrants, let's shade the 4 quadrants. Okay, we're shading the 4 quadrants. Now, if you subtract these 4 quadrants from the area of the square, we will find the area of the shaded part, right? We would, yeah? So let's set it up. Now let me repeat that. You are subtracting the area of the 4 quadrants from the square. Okay, so let's set this one up. Shaded area equals to, area of square is length times length, area of the small square, the blue square in the diagram, minus of the 4 quadrants which would form a circle, area of the circle. Okay, so let's plug in the numbers, length times length. The length is 16, right? 16 centimeters times 16 minus pi r squared. Pi, radius is 8. We've solved for these figures already. 8 times 8. Okay, now when you do the mathematics behind it, you get 256 minus 201.062. 201.062 equals to 54.938 centimeters squared. This is to 3 decimal places. However, your final answer is correct to 2 decimal places, which equals to 54.94 centimeters squared. And this is the final answer. This is the final answer for the area of the shaded region, and now 15.27 centimeters, which is the perimeter of the shaded region. We are done with this question. Alright students, we have completed lesson 3. Let me tell you this, I've shown these questions to some very, very educated people, and they all flipped when they saw these questions. So you are getting it, you're going to ace this, attempt the quiz, go score, you're a genius, you remember that, okay?